Usually when your first impression of what a work is supposed to be ends up being mediocre instead of good or bad, it gives you nothing to analyze or talk about further beyond, this is kind of mid. But for some reason, despite the trailer for Disney's newest movie Hexed fitting into that mediocre category, at least for me, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it in the week and a half at the time that I'm writing this since its release. Not only do I think there's a small chance it could turn into something at least decent, but I also think the response to it speaks volumes about the current state of modern Disney animation. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to another quick joint, a series where a video is too long to be a YouTube short, but too short to be a full-length video. Let's talk about why this trailer feels so mediocre in the first place. The trailer opens with the scene of our main character Billy accidentally discovering she has magical powers and getting expelled for unintentionally using said powers on a teacher. Right after this sequence of events, she gets sent to a world full of magical people just like her called Hex or Hexy, one or the other, I can't remember. This setup on its own is fine, but there's nothing story-wise or visually to make it feel interesting. Sure, it's a fucked up situation for someone to get expelled for not knowing how to control powers they just found out they had, but just because the character suffers consequences for something they didn't deliberately try to do, doesn't mean us, the audience, will automatically feel emotionally invested in what's happening. Especially since this trailer doesn't give us an idea of what Billy's personality is like, and instead spends most of its time setting up basic story beats. And that's the main thing that makes me upset about this whole trailer. For all I know, this movie could have so much swag to it, but they just won't show it to us. I'm not saying spoil the whole damn movie in 2 minutes, but for Christ's sake, it comes out in 4 months and to give us something. I mean, niggas will blink and it'll be November, bro. I'm telling you. But anyway, remember how I brought up earlier that this trailer spends most of its time on basic story beats and doesn't do much to get you invested into what this movie could offer? Well, said story beats felt very similar to another Disney property with a similar premise that was notorious for its production turmoil surrounding its queer representation, allegedly, as well as its supposedly capturing the wrong age demographic, at least in Disney's eyes. If you've been keeping up with the discourse, you probably know which property I'm about to talk about. On the surface, if you're not completely familiar with the Owl House itself, or the production troubles that it had, the comparisons people have been making between this show and the Hex trailer might seem like reaches if you're not all the way tapped in, for lack of better terminology. But there's a lot of different factors for why people have been calling Hex quote-unquote straight Owl House, with the main factors being the lack of interesting art direction or narrative choices while having the same basic story beats of the Owl House pilot. Do I think these comparisons are a little bit unfair considering Owl House is a complete 3-season narrative and Hex is still months away from its full release? Yeah, a little bit. But I think with extra context, these comparisons do have at least some merit behind them. Now, one thing I will give Hex credit for is that the way Billy's powers come about do separate it from the Owl House. In the Owl House pilot, Luz struggles in school because of her wild imagination, since in her homeworld, magic only exists in fiction. And as you get older, continuing to have interest in those things, especially to a hyper-fixated degree, will essentially have you ostracized, which is why Luz was so delighted by the opportunity to become a witch in a world where magic is real when she's introduced to the Boiling Owl, which is where a majority of the show takes place. Even though why Billy and Luz respectively are ostracized happened under different circumstances, those differences weren't enough to get people invested into what Hex had to offer in its trailer, mainly because it seemingly falls into the same chosen one trope that we're used to seeing in stories like this, something that the Owl House subverted early on in its run. Okay, so a day after I finished the voiceover for this video, I realized that there was an article released yesterday that addressed some of the things that I was worried about. One of those things being the Owl House comparisons, right? And basically, to paraphrase what was said in this article by the directors, I'll link the article in the description, but it basically boils down to the movie won't follow the usual chosen one hero's journey trope. It'll essentially be about Billy's relationship with her mother. And you're probably thinking, well, Luz's relationship with her mother was a pretty integral part of Owl House. Like, does that really separate the two properties all that much? But they did elaborate towards the end, and they basically seems like the movie's going to be boiling down to Billy's mother's secrets, or the family secrets, actually having a direct effect on Billy's journey as a witch or whatever. So it seems like her mom might have actually been a witch in the past, which does separate it from the Owl House, since Luz's mom was like into magic, but in the world that she comes from, it isn't real, so it's not necessarily like the same. This still doesn't completely dismiss the critiques I had when writing this video, because none of those differences were really illustrated in the trailer, like from what they showed us, but I am glad that they cleared it up at least a little bit, you know, in time for the film's release in the next 4 months. But let me know what you guys think of this in the comments. Like I said, like super last minute edition. I didn't even realize this article was a thing until like an hour ago. So yeah. In its second episode, Luce goes on a supposed chosen one fetch quest led by an ancient wizard, only for the entire adventure to be a ruse the whole time. By the end of the episode, Ida teaches Luce a very important lesson. That lesson being that there is no such thing as a chosen one, and that if you want something, you must build that destiny through strength and tenacity instead of a prophesied adventure. So when you take such a beloved show with such a powerful message early on that was championed by a community that Disney has tried to or has thrown under the bus multiple times, that being the queer community, and the fact that it was a show that had so much behind the scenes turmoil that the creator encouraged people to pirate it years after its ending, it makes sense why fans of the show would have such strong reactions to a trailer for a movie that seems to be telling a similar story without going through the same amount of production setbacks as their favorite show, at least from what we know. With one of those production troubles being the ending of the show getting cut short by Disney just because of the demographic for the series being older than expected. Even though the show was regularly trending and bringing in abnormally high viewership for a basic cable kids show in today's era, they still didn't give a f, and the wrapping of the show's story was affected as a result. And on top of that, considering this is a theatrical film, even if it doesn't do well, it'll probably catch a much larger casual viewing audience, mostly being parents and young kids, that don't really show up the same way for Disney Channel cartoons, most likely due to the spectacle of the film medium itself, alongside the fact that it will probably have a much larger marketing budget than a TV show would. Meaning this will have even more chances to get seen than the Owl House did, without seeming nearly as interesting. This isn't even mentioning the fact that the movie changed the gender of the main protagonist from a boy to a bubbly teenage girl, and didn't make that change known until the release of this trailer. They also addressed the gender change, saying they felt like it being a mother and daughter story would strengthen the story they were trying to tell more. To be clear, I don't think because of this context that the entirety of Hexed's potential should be written off because of this, since movies don't always turn out the way they're first introduced in that trailer. Especially since there's no aspects of this trailer in particular, at least in my eyes, that are super egregious. It's really boring at its worst, story-wise and visually, like I said earlier. The former I think could have a more salvageable reputation once the movie releases, and we get more context surrounding its world building, as well as the personality of the main character, and the latter seems like it would take way too much time to fix, considering that we're not that far from the movie's release date. So even though on the surface this movie seems like it's going to be the Owl House Don't Say Gay edition with a DeSantis seal of approval, I said myself that there'd be a whole casual audience seeing this movie that will have no idea about the Owl House. So speaking of said casual audience, let's analyze if there's anything in this movie that could intrigue them. What's in it for the casuals, you might ask? Nothing, to be honest. Sure, the average moviegoer is going to be a lot less picky about what they see compared to a chronically online animation fan, but at the same time, with how expensive it is to go to the movies, as well as the abundance of at-home entertainment choices that we have in today's world, something being a new Disney movie isn't going to be enough to get people in seats, especially with how badly their last two original animated films did in the box office. Hell, you probably forgot Strange World existed until I showed it on screen just now. Despite the title, wasn't nothing strange about that damn movie. The last original Disney animated movie to leave any lasting semblance of a cultural impact was over 5 years ago. And when you look back on what the core of that movie was, it's not hard to see why people loved it as much as they did. A movie about breaking generational curses and challenging the beliefs you were raised in, no matter how internalized they might be, without lacking empathy for the people that continued these harmful traditions in the first place, with the soundtrack that was made by the creator of the biggest Broadway musical of the last decade. Of course niggas with this movie, why wouldn't they? It was successful because even though it was an original IP, it still brought something to the table story and presentation wise that reminded people why they love Disney stories in the first place, regardless of if it's tied to a legacy IP or not. So if the marketing for Hex in these next 4 months doesn't go beyond clumsy magical girl gets isekai, there's a chance this movie gets nowhere close to what Encanto did, even if it turns out to be solid once it releases. Despite all the negative Nancying I've been doing in this video, I genuinely want this film to succeed, so if it has something beyond the cookie cutter nature of what we've been shown, is it really too much for me to ask that I see that before I invest my time/money into seeing this shit? At the end of the day, I just really hope this movie turns out to be something special, and that it doesn't flop colossally, get used as a scapegoat by the CEO of Disney to stop prioritizing original films, and then all of a sudden, a week later, we get an announcement of a live-action Encanto remake or something like that. If you're gonna make a film about magic, at least make it feel magical. That's all I'm asking. And if you've resonated with what I've been saying today, Check out this playlist in the corner that has my best videos for new viewers like you, and follow my IG at Genius the Great for more updates on videos like these, linked in the description. And make sure to donate to my Patreon if you want to see these videos early and uncensored. And last but not least, please subscribe to the channel. Anyway, this has been a quick joint, and until next time, I'm out this mug.